Joseph trusted in the Lord throughout his whole life. He trusted in the Lord when he was in the pit. He trusted in the Lord when he was elevated. He trusted in the Lord when he was in prison. He trusted in the Lord when he stood before Pharaoh during this great famine. He never lost his spiritual strength. In fact, I believe he got spiritually stronger and stronger. And, I have 4 points. Spiritual strength was the first. That is the most important. Without that, you can forget the rest. You say, well, I'm a prepper. I've got guns. I've got food in buckets. I'm ready to go. Look, if you're not ready in here, if you're not right with God, you can forget about it. You need to be serious about that. My first point was spiritual strength. The second is savings. The third is safety. And the fourth is supplements. We're going to talk about the second, which is savings of food and financial. We're going to see this. You're in Genesis 41. Look at verse 33. Now therefore, let Pharaoh look out a man, discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. I believe that Joseph saw a vision from the Lord in the answer of this dream. He didn't just see the dream. He saw the answer. He saw the solution. And Joseph may not have realized that he was that guy. But he saw, I believe in the vision from the Lord, you need this guy. Here's the type of guy you need. He needs to be discreet and wise. He needs to be good with business. He needs to be ready to take care of things and be wise about it. Verse 34, let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years. The 5th part, that's 20%. Verse 35, and let them gather all the food of those good years that come, and lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. What a statement here. Wow, he's saying, hey, first of all, we need men to be good stewards. And this is the lesson we can learn. Men, we need to be good stewards over our resources. Yes. Do not let a hobby or a collection or a whim destroy and waste your resources. I know people, boy, when they get their income tax check, it's like they're like a sailor, if you know what I'm talking. They're spending money, and in their mind they still have that number they got, and they look in their pocket and it's all gone, right? Like the unwise steward, like the son that went and blew his inheritance, right? Well, we shouldn't be like that. We need to be like this guy that Joseph envisioned, which ultimately was himself, and that is a man being a good steward, right? A man discreet and wise. And men, we need to be good stewards over the resources and the blessings that we've been giving while there is time, while there is plenty. Yeah. So while you have money, what can we learn from this? What happened? He saved 20%. That's a lot. That's hard to do. Saving 20%. I saw this guy that was talking about when the United States broke free from the gold standard. And so immediately he bought a gold coin for $50. And that was like in the early 70s, and today it's worth $2,000. Are you telling me gold has increased in value that much? No, I'm telling you that the American dollar, the Federal Reserve note, has decreased in value that much, and it's pushed up the numerical value, if you will, of that gold coin. That gold coin still has the same value it always has, but our money is decreasing. Our money is failing right now, and we would be wise to take 1/5 of our money and put it into something that won't lose value. I heard another statistic recently. They say 1 out of 6 millennials. 1 out of 6 millennials. All right, math whizzes, what percentage is that?
It's like 17%.
Okay, did you take off your shoes to count that number? Right. Let's say about 20%, same thing, all right? Let's say about 20% of millennials right now, they say have $100,000 in a bank account, in savings. Wow, that's really smart. Well, not when they're paying 0% interest rates on savings. Not when they're having negative interest rates. Not when they're having quantitative easing, where they're pumping billions of dollars into the industry, which makes what? That money worthless. I would not recommend saving that kind of cash, whether it be under your bed or in a bank account. I would find something that would retain value. Now here we see he stored it in food. He didn't just keep a bunch of money to buy the food. No, he kept the food. Because what happens ultimately is that food increased in value as there was a decrease of availability of the food. So what did he say? Gather up in the good years. He said, lay up corn. He says, keep food on hand. I think that's wise counsel. I think that's a good idea. Go to Genesis 47. So we're learning about savings. What can we learn from Joseph in this famine about savings, both food and financial? I do think it's good to have money on hand or money in savings, or, well, how can I do that? Well, pay off your debt. Pay off your debt while you have cash flow. If you have a mortgage, pay a little more. Double up on that mortgage to where you're fighting that interest rate a little bit. Right? And I think it's also good to buy like canned food or storable goods. Maybe just get one extra every time you go to the store. Start creating little habits of things that can last for a lifetime. Look, I'm not one of these bug out prepper nuts. I just spent $10,000 in storable foods that I saw on the internet. Okay, well, that may not be a wise idea. Why don't you just get some food you would eat and put it in cans and then work through the system. Eat the oldest stuff first and, just continue to add to it, because if you've ever survived a hurricane, you know that sometimes getting food can be difficult. Having power can be difficult. You might lose all of your refrigerator in one night. So what do? Have some canned food. Have a different form of nutrition and food. And, nutritional supplements, I think, also is very important. And we're going to talk about that. That's the fourth point, is that our food is weak. Yeah. Our food today is very weak, and we need the nutrition our body requires. But I think it's also wise to have gas on hand or oil on hand. Like I said, if you've ever been through a hurricane and you had to go without, you know what I'm talking about. You understand the importance of it. How many of you remember the housing bubble of like 2006? Yeah, amen, right? Yeah. Brother Ross and I were talking about guys. There were the guys that lost everything. They had a dozen houses. They were all renting them out. They're making a ton of money. Well, then a domino effect. They couldn't keep up with the mortgages and they lost everything, right? And what happened? Well, then there was the Great Recession of 2008, as they refer back to it. In 2008, the economy had this major dip, major problems. People were losing jobs and everything else, and losing houses and automobiles. Well, that's kind of an idea of what a famine may begin to look like, because you have to understand, in America today, your cash is fake. It is play money. It is funny money. It's monopoly money. You might as well print your own because it's worthless. Those Federal Reserve notes have nothing to do with what constitutional money is, or biblical money for that matter. You look in the Bible, what is money? It's defined as silver and gold. You look at the Constitution, it's the same thing, silver and gold. Well, we've delegated those powers to a central bank that is a foreign company that borrows money. It borrows the ability and then lends it to us and charges us an interest. And really, our money is devalued. It is debased. It's almost worthless. And if you look around in America today, we're surrounded by a bunch of weak, snowflake wannabes. You can't say anything. You're going to offend them. They have to have safe rooms at schools where children can go where they don't get offended by other people's. Well, what in the world are we living in? A bunch of snowflake, weak weirdos we're surrounded with. Well, what's going to happen if there's a financial collapse? How will they survive if there is no food? They can't get their cornflakes anymore. Their Fruit Loops, right? It's probably more Fruit Loops. What are they going to do, right? When they can't get their fruity roll-ups and all this processed GMO junk food anymore, they're going to go crazy. That's all they've ever known, right? Well, we need to not be that way. We need to be a little bit more wise than that, because this false system of money one day will fail in America. It is inevitable. It is coming. Every government that has ever printed money, they've lost everything. They've destroyed, entire millionaires lost everything just like that. The old story of people literally having a wheelbarrow full of cash, and somebody would steal the wheelbarrow and leave the cash because the wheelbarrow had real value. That was something tangible that had a use, but that cash is pretty well worthless. And it's even happened recently with certain corporations, this disappearing pensions, where a corporation sells to another and they just say, sorry, we're not honoring the pension, the retirement. Well, I put all my money in that retirement and it goes. Because you think about in America, our Social Security system is also fake. It comes out of the general budget, okay? There isn't like they actually have that kind of money on reserves. And you think about firefighters, police officers, nurses, city employees, they all have this huge, hey, probably even the military, I've got $1 million in my retirement fund. Well, do you? Or have you just been promised something that doesn't exist? Now, if cash fails and they move toward the mark of the beast, well, they don't have to honor that. They'll reset everybody. Imagine a financial holiday, a 4-day weekend, and you wake up and your bank account's frozen. You can't put anything in or take anything out. And then imagine they say, well, those cash dollar bills, they have the coronavirus on them, so we don't even want them. Destroy them. They're spreading disease. Oh, no, what am I going to do? Well, you better have some canned food. You better have some oil, you better have some gas, you better have some things that are tangible that actually have a little bit of value. So what does a financial collapse look like? You're in Genesis 47. I want you to see this because as this famine continues, and you're deep in the famine by the time we get to chapter 47, let's see what it looks like when there's a famine of food. Look at verse 13. Genesis 47:13. And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan fainted by reason of the famine. Fainted, that means they're weak. Oh, there's no Cocoa Puffs. What am I going to do? Right? That's the Americans. Look out. But look, this is global. This is a global famine we're looking at here. There's no bread, which was their main source of food he's talking about here. Look at verse 14. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan for the corn which they bought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. Now, what happens when you extract all the wealth from an economy, from a nation? Well, wealth extraction of the people will cause financial collapse. Look at the next verse, verse 15. And when money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, Give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence? For the money faileth. Money fails in a time of famine. All the more when it's fake money, when it's funny money, Federal Reserve notes, it's a joke. It's a matter of time before our money is completely worthless. I don't care how many zeros in your bank account. If you don't hold it, you don't have it. And look, I'm not saying don't have a retirement and have a scared mentality, because look, our confidence is in the Lord. I do think it's good to plan for retirement and plan for the end and maybe have income generating properties or resources that can repay you in a time of need. But we need to be wise about our money, because one day money will fail, I believe. Look at verse 16. And Joseph said, Give your cattle, and I will give you for your cattle if money fail. So here they come. They say, we can't eat bread anymore. What do we do? And he says, give me your milk supply. Give me your steaks. But back then, cattle was more than that. And he says, give me your tractors. Hey, farmers, give me your tractor. And then I'll give you some bread. Can you imagine the days when the farmers can't plant, nothing will grow, they have no food for their family, and they say, well, I've got this $100,000 tractor. I say, I don't care what you paid for it. I'll give you 2 weeks worth of bread. When you're looking at children starving, you'd say, take the tractor. Take the bull. Take our herds. Take our cattle. Just let us live. Famine is very serious. You look at the Great Depression. Man, there were whole families wiped out from the lack of food, from the lack of medicine, from the diseases that happened at that time. It was very serious. People were demineralized and just full of problems. And I don't want to get too far down that, but just think about that. Give your cattle. Give me your tractor. Give me your car. Give me your house, and I'll let you live a little. Look at verse 19. Wherefore shall we die before thine eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread. And we and our land shall be servants unto Pharaoh. And give us seed that we may live and not die, that the land be not desolate. Now they're going into slavery. They're literally becoming debt slaves. We saw the same thing in Nehemiah, where they were buying their little ones. They were literally selling their children into slavery just to try to keep them alive. Verse 20. And Joseph bought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine prevailed over them, so the land became Pharaoh's. Boy, there are those that are sitting on a bunch of cash, waiting on a collapse so they can just buy up land. There are a bunch of, if you will, wise financial instructors today just watching and waiting for that opportunity. Verse 21, and as for the people, he removed them to cities, from one end of the borders of Egypt, even to the other end thereof. Now for me, that's a strong statement. That's a scary statement. Okay, I'm going to buy your land, and now that I own you, leave your farm, leave your rural area, leave your house, and you come live in some government high-rise. You come live where the government tells you to live, and you ride the bus and forget about your car, forget about your house. You guys live in one little box and forget about what you've built. And this is actually a global agenda that was established in America. It's called Agenda 21, where they say, well, we want people riding trains and buses and bicycles. We want to eliminate cars because, they're causing global warming, and we don't want people living in farms and in rural areas and having their own food and freedom. So if we destroy that economy, we'll bring them all in and we'll pack them high. Stack them and pack them. That's exactly right. Well, they changed that from Agenda 21. They call it Agenda 2020. Now they call it 2030. And whether it happens in 2020 or 2030 isn't really the statement here. But when your government conspires against you to bring you into the cities, and here we see a warning from God of what happened during a famine. You lost your house, you lost your car, you lost your tractor, your horse, all your cattle. And he says, hey, now bring them into the city and make them live there. That's a scary thought. Look at verse 22. Only the land of the priests bought he not. Now wait a minute. Are these priests good guys or bad guys? Are these the ones that couldn't answer the dream? These are government politicians. We got to keep our financial advisors and the Senate and the Congress. We got to keep all them intact, right? We got to pump money into the economy. We'll build a bigger government. That'll save the day, right? It says, only the land of the priest bought he not, for the priest had a portion assigned them of Pharaoh, and did eat their portion which Pharaoh gave them, wherefore they sold not their lands. These wicked politicians, hey, if a man doesn't eat or doesn't work, he shouldn't eat, and that goes directly against it today. Verse 23, then Joseph said unto the people, behold, I have bought you this day, and your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and ye shall sow the land. And it came to pass in the increase that ye shall give the fifth part unto Pharaoh. How much is that? 20%. 20% taxation, that's ridiculous. Well, we're already there, right? He says, you shall give the fifth part unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be your own, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them of your household, and for your food for your little ones. Go back to Genesis chapter 41. I do believe there's a depopulation agenda today, and that's sort of what you see here, is people dying because of food. And in the day that it hurts us in America, or in the end times especially, cash won't buy what you think it will. It won't buy as much. You'll go to the grocery store, it will be empty. The taxes will be higher. People will be forsaking the rural areas to come where the food is, to come to the cities. They'll be being moved by the government into the cities. They're going to, like cattle, they'll just be shipped. They'll be put on a train and moved.